is...
Well, no matter what Israel does, the Ron Paul voters are going to hate Israel anyway. You know that.
Yes, I...
You want to make this a political situation. Let's make it very political. If Israel wanted to attack Iran, preemptively strike their nuclear facilities to keep their children and their babies alive, who would support them? Obama would attack them. Romney would probably support Israel. I'm pretty sure Romney would support that move. Gingrich would support that move. Santorum would support that move. But Ron Paul would condemn Israel. Am I right?
100%, yes. And Jimmy Carter...
Right, now let's go to the American voter. What do you think the American voter would think about Israel striking Iran because they have a very real possibility of disappearing from the earth if they don't, and the Iranians counter-striking here in America, killing Americans, blowing things up, closing bridges and tunnels, God knows what they might do, but certainly the price of gasoline going up by $2 or $3 a gallon because the oil companies would use any attempt by the Iranians to close the Strait of Hormuz, even if it was unsuccessful, to jack up their prices since the oil industry, as you well know, is a monopoly. What do you think the average American would think of Israel and the Jews at that point? They'd hate them. And then we would hear the very same rhetoric that we heard when Franklin Delano Roosevelt took America to war against Nazi Germany, that the Jews dragged us into World War II. You know that, don't you?
Yes, but I think at this time the American public would support Israel because Americans have sense of survival and they would respect a small country trying to...
Well, you see, you have to say which America would support Israel. The Christian conservative would back Israel 100%. Do you think the liberal American Jews that you know would support Israel?
No.
No. They would support Iran before they would support Israel. Do you think that the vermin in Hollywood, many of whom are Jewish liberals, would support Israel? You know they wouldn't. They hate Israel. They identify with Israel's enemies. They identify with criminals. You understand how Hollywood works. Every actor in America would attack Israel. So they'd have a public relations nightmare. No matter what they do, they're going to lose. You know that. But in one case, they live. In the other case, they die. Therefore, choose life.
Absolutely.
That's all. That's all. If a man comes to to blow up your mother's house, blow up his mother's house first. You know who wrote that? Let me repeat that. If a man comes to put a bomb in your mother's house, put a bomb in his mother's house first. Whoever knows who quoted that gets a free copy of Abuse of Power. The lines are open at 1-800-449-8255. And incidentally, the man who wrote that was, for decades, a liberal icon. But as liberals have increasingly become fascistic, all of the icons they grew up with have been thrown overboard because of the inconvenient truths that their once liberal iconic heroes once proclaimed. So there's no answer. No one knows who that is. I'll give you the answer. The answer is George Orwell. George Orwell, one of the greatest minds of the last century, wrote, if a man comes to put a bomb in your mother's house, put a bomb in his mother's house first. George Orwell wrote some amazing books that liberals all grew up on. You'd think they would still love George Orwell. But no, they've been so brainwashed that all of their early cultural heroes have been obliterated from their mind and turned into so-called reactionaries, because the liberal today is not the liberal of 40 years ago. The liberal of today is in their own right, a reactionary. The liberal of today is the true reactionary, and in fact, they're a very dangerous reactionary force in the United States of America. But this is getting into communist and anti-communist rhetoric that most Americans don't understand. I'd rather stick to hot dogs and the Super Bowl. 1-800-449-8255. Let's make it simple, A and B. Israel, Iran. Should Israel attack Iran to defend itself, or should it just disappear off the face of the earth? Of course, if you're a Ron Paul voter, the latter is the truth. If you are an Obama supporter, you'd rather see Israel disappear than Iran. There's no question. If you're Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you'd rather see Iran survive rather than Israel. You understand how the world works? Okay, let's go to the callers again on the program. Sacramento's been holding a long time. Jerry, thanks for listening. What's on your mind?
Thank you. My name's Jerry. I'm here to tell you that as a former naval officer, middle grade lieutenant commander, that the wild card is not Israel's Air Force striking Iran. Now, it's really Saudi Arabia, their covert military operating behind the scenes. They are more than likely the ones that were behind some of these assassinations regarding the scientists working on the nuclear program there.
Yeah. That's interesting. And that's because what? The Saudis have such deep penetration inside Iran?
Saudis have their covert ops the same as the United States military people do.
And there's some phenomenal operatives, aren't they?
They are operatives. They are like our Navy SEAL, CIA operatives.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're alleging, in your opinion, as an ex-naval officer, that you believe it will be Saudi Arabia in conjunction with Israel that will attack Iran, or Saudi Arabia by itself?
Saudi Arabia uses Americans as Hessians. We are the Hessians for Saudi Arabia in order to bring the strong horse to the front. By that I mean this Arab Spring is a misnomer. What we're seeing, and as a historian, I know you can appreciate this, we're having an Islamic world awakening, and the competition is between Iran and Saudi Arabia for who is going to be the strong horse, the leader of it all. And Saudi Arabia doesn't care if all of us, including the Russians, get into it, because we're looking at a hot war here, a modern war, okay? What they're all arguing about is the Iranians' capacity to put together a bomb. But the reality is, according to the intel reports I've seen, they've already got at least 5 to 7 or more nuclear-tipped missiles as of 2007. So
I'm sorry. Pardon me. Who has these missiles?
The Iranians have these missiles. They got them from our good friends, the Red Chinese, and the North Koreans, who also gave them silkworm missile technology.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what do you see happening, Jerry?
Under the military, and I've been listening to you for years, and you are on the money, Dr. Savage.
Well, Jerry, what do you see happening? What do you see coming down the road?
Regrettably, I think we're going to end up going into a war. Reluctantly, slowly, but we're going to end up going into a modern world war. And I think it's going to be a limited, that's almost laughable, nuclear war. But bear in mind, World War II was a limited nuclear war, although only one side had the bomb at the time. But it's scary what I could tell you about what the war planners are looking at. And we're looking at a world war with a first strike by the Soviets, possibly, and the United States in response, of course, because we would never preemptively do that.
But isn't Obama rushing to denuke us?
Even Obama, as bad a leader, in my opinion, as he is, and what he's done to the military morally, he doesn't have, at least yet, that kind of authority.
It's interesting you should say that. I heard that from another highly placed former operative, that there's a shadow government that's still in charge, thank God, still protecting us. Do you agree with that?
I do. That's a fact. There's still patriots. There are those in high positions in our military, thank God, that still believe.
So how does a man like Panetta get so much authority to decimate the military like this, reducing the naval forces to a level not seen since World War I, cutting back on the military size when we're about to go into such a hot war that you project? Why would he be doing this at this time?
Well, that's just it. When you have, I know this will sound strange, they kind of let all these multinational corporations they let the genie out of the bottle, so to speak. That's why you've seen it, Dr. Savage. All of our industry, computer technology, it's all leaving the country. That's why we're in such a mess economically. The one-worlders don't really care that much about us. That's why you can see around us, we're all turning into almost a banana republic.
You mean with the flood of illegal aliens from Mexico literally being welcomed by the Obama administration and states that try to defend themselves being attacked by the Justice Department? It's almost a plan to annihilate this nation?
They want plenty of population here because they're going to need it after this nuclear strike. They're going to need the people. And I believe they know that. That's why they're letting in all these people, is because we're going to get hit, and we're going to get hit hard, not just out there in the Middle East theater. It's going to be involving our West Coast and possibly Hawaii. Look at Obama holding down our military, and we're watching the missiles fly from North Korea over towards Hawaii and over Japan, for crying out loud. I mean, if that's not insanity and telegraphing our weakness to our enemies, and our enemies are...
Well, you sound like you're part of the old Navy as opposed to the diverse Navy of today, where they're trying to use the ships as floating brothels or floating birthing clinics. I'm sure you saw all of that going on while you were still in the service.
It was beginning. Some of us...
Do you know that I had a naval... I went aboard a ship, and I'm not going to say when. It was in port, and it was nighttime. It was, open to the public. And a naval officer told me his father, lifetime Navy, was thrown out of the Navy because he had a copy of one of my books on his desk. A militant feminist naval officer, you can pretty much picture the type, saw my book on his desk, and she threw him out of the Navy after about 20 years of service. He told me that he is afraid, and so are the officers, of fear walking the decks of his ship at night because the Crips and the Bloods have control of the decks of the ship at night. He said it's like a gang war on the decks of the ships. That's how bad it is. It is though with the Russian Navy in the year 1910. The Potemkin. It's like the battleship Potemkin. We're weaker than we've ever been under this character in the White House. He has a vulture cutting the military to the bone, and you're telling us that the world is getting ready to go into a war state? How is that possible?
Well,
look, we could do this. You know what I'm going to ask you to do? Please call the show again next week or the next time you see an opportunity to do so. Give this gentleman a priority to get on the show. Send him a copy of Abuse of Power because he's going to love Jack Hatfield. I'll be right back. Savage. Every once in a while I get a caller who sends chills on my spine. That last caller, if you listen to it, knew what he was talking about. He spoke with authority, and it's certainly plausible. Say, come on, it can't happen. We have such a genius in the White House and such a coterie of brilliant people from the universities around Obama. They can't let that happen. After all, this is the man who saved the United States of America from the worst economy in, a million years. Yeah, he's not going to let that happen. Well, he has good friends in the Muslim world. Didn't Hillary Clinton have a reset with Russia? They're not going to do anything against us. Hillary Clinton's on top of that one. She's got them under her thumb. Just everything she does is just brilliant. She's the most popular woman in the history of the world, according to the Associated Press and the other outlets of her publicity. No, this can't happen. But yes, see, this is how things do happen. One day you wake up and you read 9/11 happened, or you watch it on television while drinking coffee if you're not in New York, and you say, I can't believe what I'm watching. But you're watching an attack on our soil, and it happens. And he's saying it's going to happen again, only this time in spades. Now, I don't know whether to believe him. I have no idea. Why couldn't it happen? When you have a president who tramples on the Constitution, who has usurped the Constitution, who has imposed the equivalent of martial law in America, should he desire to do so, with the NDAA while you partied on New Year's Eve. He passed the National Defense Authorization Act, which had a little rider attached to it. The rider said the military can arrest any American citizen on U.S. soil without a writ of habeas corpus, and they don't care. They can take you away in a black car the way they were doing in Argentina under Pinochet, Chile under Pinochet. You now have Pinochet in the White House. But the very liberal vermin who told us about military dictatorships support this military dictatorship under Obama. The very same rats in Hollywood who couldn't get enough of their vitriolic hatred for the Pinochet regime and the generals in South America, are thrilled with the military dictatorship under their man in the White House. So therefore, we the people are facing some pretty dangerous months ahead. And what do we have on the other side? He said, he said, he said, he said, he said, he did, he said, he said. And Fatso is running around ripping Ramney. That's all Fatso can do, is attack people. Fatso is attacking Ramney. That's the reverse party, the opposition party.
Savage.